In firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. For over 20 years, the FireStore has equipped first responders with trusted gear featuring brands like MSA Carnes for helmets and Seek for thermal imaging cameras. Stay prepared. Visit thefirestore.com today. The FireStore, your trusted safety partner.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with Magnegrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit Magnegrip.com.
Hello there, and welcome to Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio in this episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. This is the podcast that is dedicated to our great volunteer fire service and getting all the listeners to accept and support the message that developing and displaying and maintaining a professional image and reputation are the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, and true professionalism is never defined by a paycheck. Tom Merrill here. Thank you all for joining me. It's the holiday season, and I want to wish you all the best for a joyful and very happy holiday. I hope you take the time to spend it with your family and your loved ones. Maybe take some time off and relax and recharge your batteries and get ready for 2025, if you can believe I'm saying that. Seems like we just entered 2024, and as they say, time certainly flies. And speaking of relaxing and recharging batteries, I'll tell you, I've been burning the midnight oil recently. I've been working on a multitude of different projects and falling behind on several as well. Definitely added a little bit to my stress level, which I'm sure you can understand. We're always under the gun this time of year, right? So here I'm sitting. It's a Wednesday night when I'm recording this, and it's about 10:30 Eastern time, and just got home 20 minutes ago from the firehouse. Imagine that. I was up at the firehouse tonight. Our annual CPR recertification, got that done. And I came home and I'm like, man, I got a lot on the plate. I'm working on articles, working on presentations, doing some FDIC projects, and even my paid job gets I have some work to do for that, those darn paycheck earning jobs that always seem to get in the way. And of course, family obligations and things going on with the family, and the holidays coming up. So it's just stressful time of year, and I'm constantly adding to my to-do list, as I'm sure all of you are as well. And one of my to-do list projects was time to plan and air the December podcast. And I went through my list of guests that I'm going to be having on and topics that I want to talk to you about. I keep a file folder filled with all that information, and I was going through it, and a couple of the guests couldn't make it this month, and it was really adding to my stress level with everything else going on. And as we were getting close to airtime and recording this for when I'm scheduled to go on, which is December 17th, when a couple of the guests couldn't make it, instead of getting too crazy, I took a step back, concentrated on some of the other stuff I had to do, got some Christmas shopping done and all that. And then I finally said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a step back and just chill out a little bit and hang out here with you tonight and talk about a few things that are on my mind. And before I do that, I'm also going to go through a year in review. I want to give you a quick summary of some of the many topics we covered over the past 11 or 12 months. And again, at the very end, I want to give you a few Merrill observations, some things I've noticed about our volunteer fire service, and some things we do to help our professional image, and some things we can really do to hurt our professional image. So how does that sound? So I invite you to sit back and relax yourself, and just sit back and listen to me as I talk about what's been going on this podcast. And again, I know you're stressed like I am. Holidays are coming up. Maybe you got some end of the year work deadlines, whatever. Let's chill here tonight and dive into the past year. Okay. How's that sound? Let's get into it. And over the past year, my gosh, we've had 14 different guests on the show to share their expertise and discuss some very pertinent topics of relevance to the fire service. 14 guests, some of whom were volunteer firefighters, some of whom are paid firefighters, some who do both, but some who are retired, maybe not even active anymore, but they all had a lot of information and great words of wisdom to pass on and insights to share with us. And they were all definitely true professional, whether they were paid or volunteer. They all were true professional firefighters in every sense of the word. And so much great information we covered. When I went back to just do a quick summary and write it up, I was amazed at the topics that we did cover. And the cool thing is, you can go back and listen to any one of these podcasts. I have them all on my professional volunteer fire department website. There's a subheading, a tab at the top, podcast. And that's the website, www.theprofessionalvolunteerfiredepartment.com, or the PFD, theprofessionalvfd.com. Sorry. There's links for all the podcasts. I also have a YouTube channel, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Everything's on there in chronological order. You can also Google fire engineering podcasts, and it'll take you to fire engineering site. That site's www.blogtalkradio.com/fire. But they're all there too, along with all the other great fire engineering podcasts. They do pretty much one a day. And I'm sure in addition to mine, you'll find several others that you want to listen to. And I encourage you to check them all out because they are so good. All of them with great information. And you can listen when you're working out, when you're working around the house, when you're driving to work, whatever. A lot of good information. And it's important. And I always say it's one of the equations of being a professional firefighter, soaking up the knowledge. I learn just as much from you as maybe you can learn from me as I talk to you. And so they're all there for you to go back and check out. And man, I got to tell you, I am tired right now. It has been a long couple of weeks. But I'm looking forward to spending some time here recording this podcast, winding down after a good night at the firehouse. The brothers and sisters, after our CPR training, we sat around, we had some pizza, we sat around and just exchanged stories and soaked up the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that are just so important. So important. And I just came home saying, man, that was a good night with my friends at the firehouse. And I hope you get to experience that as well back in your firehouse. So where do we start? Let's go back to the beginning of the 2024, back in January. We invited the first vice president of the ISFSI on the show, Brian Zaitz. And if you're wondering what IFSI, I say it wrong all the time. It's a long couple of words or letters there. It's ISFSI. Well, that stands for the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. And we invited Brian Zaitz on the show. He is one of the vice presidents for the ISFSI. And we invited him on the show to talk to us about that organization. And we had a great conversation about what a great resource the International Society of Fire Service Instructors can be for fire departments and fire department training officers, because it exists for fire departments everywhere, paid or volunteer, big and small. The mission of the ISFSI says it so well: inspiring, supporting, and elevating instructors around the world. And that's what we talked about back in January. And we all know that training is a very hot topic in the volunteer fire service and the fire service in general. I always like to share the story that out of all the articles I've written for fire engineering, over 30 something parts now to the professional volunteer series, but the one that generated the most feedback, the one I got the most emails on, the one I got the most phone calls or text messages on, concerned an article I did about the training and how important it is, and how some departments have really well put together training programs and others maybe lack in that area or don't do any training at all. So everyone has a lot to say when it comes to the subject of training. And if you're involved in training, or you want to get involved in putting on a good training drill, or you want those resources available to make yourself just a more well-rounded firefighter, highly encourage you to join the ISFSI because if you're a member, you can network with other professional instructors. You can receive exclusive educational and training materials. Oh, there's the minute of radio going off right now. I didn't even turn it off for this. It's not my company. Another company, brothers and sisters out in East Amherst out on a call. We'll turn that off. But anyway, the membership in the ISFSI allows you to enjoy networking and have mentorship opportunities because they have so many great senior members who are readily available to help you out and work with you and share their experiences and share their expertise with you. And membership also offers you professional development opportunities. They have a lot of programs that are available. They have a lot of advice and information to help new instructors and to help strengthen veteran instructors as well. And membership will also help you network with firefighting peers throughout the industry to help maybe get answers that you're looking for, to provide information or advice, or maybe tackle a topic that you're interested in and give you some great information. There's just so much of good to be being a member in that organization. Of course, there's so many great educational programs and online courses that they offer as well. So January, we had Chief Zaitz on, and he shared this great information. And if you've not had a chance to listen to it as of yet, I highly encourage you to check it out. And that was our January episode on the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. In March, we took it to the streets, quite literally, with Chris Naum. He hosts a very popular fire engineering podcast titled Buildings on Fire, taking it to the streets. And he's highly recognized for his innovative training and lecture series, which integrates building construction sciences along with fireground operations. And he often heads right out into the street. If he's out in a community presenting, he'll go out into the streets with the class and talk about building construction and observe what's going on that main street in that town. And it's a really, really well-received class. And he has so much great information to share on building constructions and how it directly relates to fireground operations. And we had a great conversation, and Chris calls it, it's one of the most important structural fireground skill sets, but it's often the least focused on and understood or promoted as well. And we dived right into it. And as the conversation progressed, he built a strong case for his argument that building construction is as fundamental to structural firefighting as water is to fire suppression. And stretching and operating in a building that you have no knowledge of, insights of, or considerations for, well, that's derelict and placing you and your company at risk. So we spent over an hour discussing building construction and how it impacts firefighting tactics, and how, as professional firefighters, how important it is to understand how all of that applies in our fire operations. And if you think this is a boring topic, if you think it doesn't apply, I encourage you to go back and listen, because he gave us some great insight and information and tips to help us understand building construction and things we can do to make us more well-versed in that area. So that was Chris Naum, and we spent over an hour talking about all things building construction related. In April, I did a FDIC preview show. I reviewed an article I wrote for FDIC. It premiered that month, and it was titled Definitions Don't Matter, Actions and Behavior Do. And I talked about how from time to time, I find myself being challenged by others who maybe take an issue to my use of the word professional when talking about volunteer firefighters and volunteer fire departments, because some believe that word can only apply to someone who's being paid to do the job, or an organization that's staffed with career personnel. So, and in the article, and what I talked about in the show, is when I'm confronted with those trolls and naysayers, and what I like to do is point out that there's a lot of definitions in the dictionary or online that apply to that word professional. And many of them make no mention of the word paycheck or being one's chosen career field. I see a wide range of definitions, like relating to work that needs special skills or training, doing your job well, characterized or by or conforming to technical or ethical standards of a profession, behaving in a correct way, and exhibiting courteous and conscientious and a general business-like manner in the workplace. A Google search of the word professional adds being reliable, setting your own high standards, and showing that you care about every aspect of the job. Another Google search told me that being a professional is being organized and holding yourself accountable for your thoughts, your words, your actions. So the point I simply made in my article and what I talked about leading up to my FDIC presentation is these definitions can apply to all of us. Doesn't say anything about being a paid firefighter or career firefighter. And to be fair and be quite honest, and I pointed this out in the article, and I'll be blunt with my naysayers. Yes, there are some definitions that do define professional as being someone who's paid to do the work. And I fully acknowledge that. I'm not going to argue that. But what I like to say is along with those definitions of earning pay or it's your life's work are the other definitions that I mentioned. And they all apply to us. So let's concentrate on those things we have personal control over, like doing our job well, behaving in a correct way, showing a high level of skill or training. Those are just a few of the definitions that any professional firefighter can hold themselves accountable to. And when it all gets said and done, definitions don't really matter to the person who's calling for help, right? Or the person calling the firehouse, expecting someone to answer the phone and maybe be there to answer a question they have, or maybe arrange for a tour, or they have some other type of question. When all is said and done, people will remember that in their time of need, kind, courteous, competent, compassionate firefighters showed up to help take care of their problem. Or when they interact with a group, they remember how they were treated and how the firefighters were acting and how they made them feel. Those are such simple things that we can all do. Simple things that are under all of our own personal control that define professionalism. And yes, paycheck may, but these other things do. We can't control that it's not our career. It's not our life's work. We can control how we treat people, how we make them feel, how well trained we are, how seriously we take the work. Being reliable and setting your own high standards and showing that you care about every aspect of your job, you can hold yourself accountable to that. We can all do those things. And they're under our own direct personal control. That's the cool thing. In May, we dove headfirst into the hot topic debate that is still going on, and that's the OSHA standard, the proposed overhaul to the 29 CFR 1910-156 standard, the fire brigade standard. It's a long debate, been going on for a while, been created quite a buzz in our industry for sure. Some are glad to see the recommendations. Some are glad to see the changes that are being proposed, and some are seeing it as the demise of the fire service, especially our wonderful volunteer fire service. In fact, a common theme that I have been hearing is that while several of the proposed provisions would be helpful and maybe improve safety at the emergency scene and for the emergency responders, many are opposed to the implementation of the rules that the way it's currently being proposed, because they believe in its place will be so many new requirements on the emergency services organizations. Some would cause fund challenges. Some would cause challenges to having people want to volunteer to do the work. And it might just be impossible for many volunteer departments to fully comply with these proposed standards. So I brought in a subject matter expert on the podcast to help educate all of us. Dave Denniston, he's from my home state in New York. And he's a world of knowledge when it comes to the topic of overhauling the fire brigade standard. He's been all over the country talking about it. He's testified to Congress about it. And we spent an hour talking about it back in May. And we admitted it wasn't all bad, but we did learn how important it is to not just understand it, be a little better informed about it, but how it can, if adopted, affect our hometown volunteer fire department. And as he continuously stressed during the show, this is going to apply to all of us. This isn't a paid thing. This isn't a big department thing. This isn't an urban or suburban area thing that maybe the rural communities don't have to worry about. No, this is going to apply to our fire service collectively. And I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode and educate yourself and understand where we are with the proposed standard, where it's going, and maybe what you can do to have your voice heard, because that's an important topic. And we spent quite a time talking about that. Chief Steve Przyborowski was kind enough to spend some time with us on 2 episodes in June and July. And for those who are not familiar with Chief Przyborowski's work, I encourage you to listen or re-listen to these episodes, because the chief is known very well throughout the world, the fire service world, and the leaders in the fire service know him because he has authored several books and he presents everywhere. And during the course of our 2 episodes with the chief, we reviewed 2 of his books. His signature book, which is Courage Under Fire Leadership. It was the launching pad for his leadership presentation that he goes out and takes all over the country. And we had a great conversation on that book and how it's broken down into 6 sections. And these sections all contain examples and lessons that you probably have learned in your leadership journey. But they're important to review and understand. And he broke it into fire terms. And he also broke it into 6 sections: personal leadership, personnel leadership, fireground leadership, firehouse leadership, administrative leadership. And then he passed on at the end, leadership lessons from others. Great conversation, great book. Highly encourage you to add it to your collection like I've got behind me here. And then the other book that he talked about is another very popular book that he has, and that's 101 Tips to Ace Your Promotional Exam, which I know that can easily throw volunteers off, because most volunteer agencies, there's not an exam to get promoted. You want to be a lieutenant, in most cases, it's an election, right? And we can freely admit that might not be the best method to do it, but in reality, that's how most volunteer firehouses operate. But the cool thing, if you listen to this podcast and get the book, 101 Tips, so many of the tips in that book apply to volunteer firefighters as much as they apply to paid firefighters. So many of the tips apply that if you want to win over your people, you want to inspire confidence in your people and your ability to lead them and do the job on either side of the aisle, administrative too. If you want to be president, a board of director, a commissioner, whatever it is, this book will help you because it applies to both sides of the aisle. And 2 great episodes with Chief Przyborowski on the June and July episodes of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And in August, I had legendary FDNY Captain Mike Dugan come on and join me, and we had a great conversation, simply awesome conversation, about a relatively new concern in the fire service, and that's fires and emergency incidents that occur in big box warehouses and big box stores. And many of these are very apt to be in small town America, where land may be plentiful, land may be cheap, access is easier than, say, in an urban area. They're in the urban areas too, but they are springing up in rural areas all over the country, and there is so much to know. Perhaps they're in your first due area. Maybe they're in your neighbor's area. Well, if they are, you should be aware, because even if it's 2 departments over, chances are if there's an incident, you're going, because there's a lot of concerns and a lot of challenges with incidents in these buildings. And we may even think, you know what, they're new. They just built one in my town or 2 towns over. But you know what? They have sprinklers in them. They're modern building construction with all the latest greatest fire codes. They can't burn. But you know what? They have burned. And there's been plenty of near misses in them. And there's plenty of concerns and things to be aware of. And that's what we discussed in this 2-hour episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department back in August. In September, we aired another big show, both in terms of topic and guests. We had Frank Lieb and Billy Goldfeder on the show, and they joined me to talk about their new book that recently came out, 30 Fires You Must Know. And along with Chief Lieb and Chief Goldfeder, we had some very special guests. They were either at one of the fires. We chose a few to review, and we picked some guests that were either at the fires or they were in some way connected with the fire, and they had a lot of great information to share and pass on. We had Chief Mike Lombardo on from my hometown in Buffalo, and he talked about the Buffalo, New York propane explosion back in 1983 that killed 5 Buffalo firefighters. We had Chief Mark Wessel on, retired chief out of Keokuk, Iowa. He discussed the 1999 fire there that killed 3 of his firefighters along with 3 children. We had Chief Steve Kalman on. He discussed the Hackensack, New Jersey Ford fire in 1988 that killed 5 firefighters in Hackensack. And we had Captain Joe Wojciech from the Los Angeles County Fire Department on. He discussed a fire he had a very personal connection to, and that's the Yarnell Hill fire in Arizona, which in 2013 took the lives of 19 firefighters, including that of his 21-year-old son, Kevin. And this was recorded on what would have been Kevin's birthday. We recorded the episode on Kevin's birthday. And that was certainly a testament to the Captain Joe's commitment and dedication to making sure the lessons that are there are still passed on and talked about. And that whole show was dedicated to those firefighters who made the ultimate sacrifice, but it also celebrated their lives and their commitment to our craft. And we continued to honor this age-old proverb that as long as we speak their names, they're never forgotten. So we talked about who these firefighters were. We talked about their sacrifice. But we talked about the lessons that are there, and we can't forget those lessons. They can't be sloughed aside and forgotten about it only after a short time. And if you're looking for that first responders Christmas gift ideas, put 30 fires you must know on the list. Add it to your bookshelf. Get it for a first responder. Get it for your officers. Get it as a department gift. One of my professional mandates is you need to read about this fire service. If you're volunteering to serve in it, you need to understand a lot, including 30 fires that you must know. And they already have plans for part 2 and part 3, because there's certainly not a lot more than 30 fires, but they had to narrow it down. And the other cool thing is by purchasing the book, you're also helping out several fire service charities. They're not making a dime on this book. All the proceeds are going to some firefighter charities, the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, the First Responder Center for Excellence, the Deputy Chief Ray Downey Scholarship Charity Fund, the Tunnels to Tower Foundations, all organizations a professional firefighter should recognize and be aware of. So please, please, please consider that book. And remember, as long as we speak their names, they're never forgotten. And the other thing is the great Vinnie Dunn said. If you don't know who Vinnie Dunn is, go back and Google his name. But he says it quite often, there's no new lessons to be learned from a firefighter's death or injury. The cause of the tragedy is usually an old lesson that we have never learned or somehow forgotten along the way. And that's what we want to prevent. We want to make sure we're doing this, talking about it at home. There's lesson plans at the end of each chapter to help you teach a drill on these fires in your department to pass those lessons on. All of these fires need to be understood. And they certainly point out the unpredictability of our job, right? And we can protect a whole new generation of firefighters. And another quote I like to say so often is, you know what, those who fail from history are doomed to repeat it. So let's not do that, right? That's true in war. It's true in politics. And it's certainly true in the fire service as well. And we've seen it time after time and time. And thank God, kudos to Chief Lieb, Chief Goldfeder, and the contributors to the book for helping get the word out about things that we can do to learn from these fires and pass on the lessons to the brothers and sisters today. And they remember the sacrifice, but also they can learn tips that hopefully will help them to be better prepared on the fire ground. After that, we had renowned fire service attorneys Kurt Verone and Brad Pinsky on the show, and they discussed some must-have policies to offer their ideas on how we should write good policies and how we need to have good policies in place to protect our organization. And I know right now, many of you are rolling your eyes. Policies, how boring. I don't want to talk about it. But if you haven't listened to this episode, or you choose not to because you don't think it's an important topic, I encourage you to do so, because they present it in such an interesting way. They make it very, very easy to listen to. Their points are well taken, and there's a lot of good information that they share in just over an hour. So it's a good one to go back and listen to. And that was the the October Fire Engineering Podcast, Professional Volunteer Fire Department. One takeaway from that, which I found fascinating, is so many of the legal issues that we get into in the fire service are self-inflicted. We can be so bad to ourselves. And as the attorneys Verone and Pinsky point out, over 70% of fire service lawsuits are a result of internal issues and conflict. Did you hear what I just said? Over 70% of fire service lawsuits are due to internal issues and conflict, namely discrimination, harassment, and retaliations. 70%. So you think you should have some policies in place? Because if we had policies in place to address these, and we enforced the policies, we reviewed the policies, then it's just collect dust on a bookshelf somewhere. We taught new members about these policies, reviewed them with the senior members, they'd have a lot less work to do. 70%. Great episode to listen to. And on that episode, too, another thing, Attorney Pinsky had some extremely important information to share with us all about how imperative it is. And you need to understand this. And I'm going to paraphrase it here. But he went back and talked about the Corporate Transparency Act and how it's going to apply to not-for-profit organizations, which many volunteer fire departments are not-for-profit or think they're not-for-profit. And if your volunteer department isn't not-for-profit, he explains why you want to be and how to go about and do it. But he pointed out that so many volunteer fire departments and so many volunteer ambulance service think they are tax exempt from federal income tax. Well, we've been in business for over 100 years now, and we think we're tax exempt. No one's ever said anything about it, or we have a federal tax ID number, which is important, but that doesn't mean you're tax exempt. And you need to ensure your department or your agency is tax exempt. Now, he estimates 30 to 40% of the fire departments he has talked to that thought they were tax exempt are not actually tax exempt. And there's lots of reasons for it. And he provides information on how to go back and see and make sure you are tax exempt, or if you're not, how to go and do it. And this is coming to the forefront now. And the reason he wanted to sound the alarm, because of some recent action that the federal government has taken, namely the Corporate Transparency Act, which was recently created. And if your company is not a 501c3 or C4 and is not filed, the IRS will be knocking on your door in 2025 to see why you haven't filed your taxes. And if you're not in order by January 1st of 2025, yes, January 1st, like a few weeks from now, you can be fined $500 per day. So go back and listen to this episode. Attorney Pinsky will review with you how to determine if your agency is tax exempt and what to immediately do if you find out you're not tax exempt. And even if you think you are, take the time to verify that you are, and he'll tell you how to do that. And again, the Corporate Transparency Act goes into effect January 1st of 2025. And if you are not tax exempt and have not been filing taxes, you can be fined up to $500 a day. And he'll discuss what a 501c3 is, what a 501c4 is, why a C3 is better than a C4. Great episode for sure. You can't bury your head in the sand. Just like with these OSHA standards, you can't bury your head in the sand and think it's not going to apply to your department, folks, because it will. And just last month, we had Chief Brandon Fletcher came on, from the Gilt Edge Volunteer Fire Department in the great state of Tennessee. And we had a great discussion about rural success, winning with the fire engine you have and not with the engine you want. And what that show was about building an engine that works for your department, building a training program that works for your department. Everyone loves the FDNY. Everybody loves Chicago. Everyone loves these big departments. But the reality is, it's not reality for many areas. And even if money was of no concern and you're getting a new engine, it's still 3 to 4 years away. So the point of the episode was working with what you have and what you have now. Because regardless of your situation, regardless of your area that you protect, there's certain expectations people have, and that's that you're going to show up and be competent with what you do. So he talked about the necessary equipment, the strategies to win with the equipment you have, how to train with the equipment you have. And it was a really, really good episode, and he had a lot of good information to share with working with the equipment and the engine you have, not with the engine and equipment that you want. Chief Brandon Fletcher on the November episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. So that's a wrap on our year. Good guests, good content, wonderful words of wisdom from some of the brightest minds in the American Fire Service. And I want to thank all of them for coming on and talking with me. And again, all of the episodes are available. They're all on my website, theprofessionalvolunteerfiredepartment.com or VFD.com. And it's on my YouTube page. And of course, you can get them all off Fire Engineering site as well, www.blogtalkradio.com/fire, or just Google Fire Engineering Podcast or Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio, and you'll get taken right to them. And I'm already gearing up for 2025. Even though I've been busy like you have and the holidays are coming, I got a list of ideas and guests for 2025. And I encourage you, if you have ideas on what I should be talking about on this show, a topic that you would like me to dive into a little more, you have a guest that you think would be a good fit for the show, you want to come on the show and talk about something in your area or that you witness, professional, unprofessional, training ideas, whatever it is, reach out to me. I'd love to have you on. I'd love to consider your ideas. But rest up, folks. Recharge. 2025 is coming. And as we prepare to roll into the new year, I want to just talk about a few things, a few observations of mine. And I want to offer a few tips or words of wisdoms or suggestions on some things I think we can do better to uphold and enhance our fire service professional reputation, as well as our own personal reputation. And the first one came because I'm putting a new presentation together. Another thing on my list that I got to get done in time. I'm rolling it out at a conference in March, the Pinsky Law Conference in March. And I started working on it, and I've tentatively titled it Building or Creating a Culture of Excellence, Teamwork, and Camaraderie in Our Volunteer Fire Service or in our Volunteer Fire Agency. I'm still working on the title, or paraphrase it, it's Extinguishing Firehouse Fires. Where do we fight more fires? On the fire ground or in the firehouse, right? And it bothers me. I hate the infighting that I hear about, that I experience. I don't like it at all. You know, we should be going to our firehouses. I used to call it the firehouse should be a great escape. Life is stressful. Your job is stressful. Family life can be stressful, right? Things aren't working at home. You know, there's always that to-do list of broken appliances, lawns to mow, yard work to done, fields to cultivate, whatever it is. Life is stressful. The firehouse should be a great escape. We should go up there like I did tonight to hang out with the brothers and sisters, do some training, and realize you got some great friends up there, like-minded individuals, committed to the mission. It should not be a place that if that car's there, you drive by. It should not be a place that you come home from more stressed than maybe when you got there. Yet it happens all the time. I'm not saying life's perfect. Life is challenging. But we need to build a culture of camaraderie in our firehouses. You're going to have opposite points of view in any organization. You're going to have different ideas. Not everyone thinks like you. Newsflash. Newsflash. Not everyone's thinking like you are. and not everyone shares your ideas. And a couple things I see is sometimes people look down on the senior members, the older men. What did they ever do? They're not getting out of bed at 3 a.m. like they used to. And I recognize that it's important to get out of bed and take care of people. But if you have a member that did it for 30 years, he's a former captain, did it for 30, 35, 40 years, and now he's 65 years old and he's not, I think he still deserves a little respect. New people, I encourage you to respect the traditions and the cultures. And I think we can do that while we embrace new ideas. What's outdated about going to a wake or a funeral? What's outdated about showing respect and honoring one who served years ago, maybe even before you were born? So newer members, respect the traditions. Pay homage to your fire department cultures. And if you're a veteran, why can't you teach a new member about gas and oil? Or how to navigate, or ask them how to navigate that new feature on your iPhone? Or listen as they talk excitedly about that new tool. Heck, I remember when thermal imagers were new. I've heard stories about when SCBA was new and how it stayed in the cases on the rig and no one used them. Recently listened to a podcast, heard stories of the FDNY rescue company throwing the newfangled Hydro-Ran out of the truck as it went to a call. Tools that are accepted today without batting an eye, right? You get the idea. Give respect to earn respect. I'm really working hard on this presentation because our firehouses should be a great escape and we should enjoy our brothers and sisters' company while we're there. Remember, these are the new members' good old days, senior members. You talk about the 80s. Some of you talk about the 70s and even 60s. I talk about the 90s and 2000s. Those are my good old days. Somebody joining today, 2024, it's that member's good old day. Opposite points of view are what you're going to have in any organization. Truly listen to each other. Do you ever wonder why boards are made up of 5 or 7, or in some cases 9 members? It's because you got to come to a consensus. And there has to be a tiebreaker. Learn to work as boards and committees. Listen to other people's discussion points. Truly listen. When they're talking, don't be thinking of your rebuttal right away. Listen to what they have to say and respect people's opinions. And if you're on the losing side of one of the decisions that's made by a board of 5 or 7 or 9, sure, you can be upset, but you can't say you didn't have your chance. You just didn't get your way. That's life. And we should more often understand that. And it's happened to all of us, right? Give people a chance at the table, but a decision's got to be made. Okay, enough on that. Enough on that. Just a few more things for 2025, folks. You've heard me say this before, but I have to say it again because we're not getting any better at it. Stop attacking each other on social media. It goes against absolutely everything we stand for. It is anything but professional. Paid or volunteer, it doesn't matter. It looks amateurish. It looks ridiculous. I know it's the way of the world today, but don't let that nasty world, that angry world, that judgmental world, that mean-spirited world enter our fire service ranks. Remember, the general public sees these attacks. How does it look to them? What do you think they're thinking about us? Doesn't do our reputations any good, paid or volunteer. Yes, other companies are going to have a bad day at the office. My company could have a bad day at the office. Your company could have a bad day at the office. Things just didn't go right. We have our A, B, C, D teams. Maybe the E team showed up one day, right? And video's there to capture it all. Okay, fair. We screwed up. Learn from it. Talk about it in-house. But why do we got to take to the keyboard? Why do we have to criticize absolutely everything we see another department do that we wouldn't do? Learn from it and talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that in-house. But why do we sit there and attack each other? We see this Maltese cross when we're out and about and we're backslapping each other. Hey, brother, hey, sister, we're the best. But then we think nothing of taking to the keyboard and ripping each other apart 5 minutes later. that goes against everything the Maltese Cross should stand for. And we've got to put an end to it. And another trend I'm seeing way more recently is when a member of our own community posts something on social media that we immediately make fun of it, even if it's a simple inquiry. Hey, I'm looking for a plumber. Can someone make a recommendation? And I see nasty rebuttals, ridiculous rebuttals, stupid comments, and I trace them back to firefighters. If I know they're a firefighter, other people will find out they're a firefighter, and it does our reputation no good. Yes, people post stupid things on social media. Yes, the general public is going to make comments about the services they receive at a cashier that didn't do something right, or they didn't like that the garbage wasn't picked up, whatever it is. For us to go online and ridicule them and make fun of them puts us at their level. Hold ourselves to a higher level and be more professional. A couple other observations. New members, as I talked about, supporting the customs and the traditions, go to the social events. Yes, you're joining and you're energetic and you want to go to calls and you want to train, and absolutely that's the most important thing. But you know what? We need to build a team. We need a high-spirited team filled with camaraderie. And the way to do that is by socializing together. Go to the social events. Go to the conferences, the local conferences, the county, the state, and even the national ones if you can do it. Networking is so important to your success. Not everything is learned online. Yes, a lot is. I'm not taking that away from you. You're listening to me online right now, and that is great and admirable. But a conversation in a hallway can yield you results that you never thought you'd get, because someone's out there experiencing what you're experiencing, or looking for the answer that you're looking, or has the answer for what you're looking for. And if nothing else, you'll leave these conferences with a bunch of new friends for life, because that's what this Maltese Cross is all about. And last but not least, my last words of wisdom as we enter 2025, read and learn something every single day about this important profession that you are part of. I just mentioned that book, 30 Fires You Must Know. And something I like to say in my presentations are, what have you read recently? What have you read this week? What have you read this month? What have you read this year? Retired General James Mattis said it so well. If you haven't read hundreds of books, you're functionally illiterate, and you will become incompetent because your personal experiences alone are not broad enough to sustain you. There's a wealth of knowledge out there to be shared. Pick up a book. Make yourself a more educated firefighter. And love this fire service that you are part of. It shouldn't be stressful for you. You should enjoy it. The firehouse should be a great escape. The fire service should be a great escape. And you should soak up the bonds of that brotherhood and that sisterhood when you stop in your firehouse, whether it's a member that's been in a week or a month, or a member that's been around for 40 or 50 years. We need to respect each other. We need to respect other opinions. We need to work together as a team. And we need to come to consensus. And even if that consensus isn't maybe what we wanted, if we were given a seat at the table and we had a chance to make our point and it didn't go our way, that's life. Don't hold it personally against the organization. So that's a wrap on 2024. Just a few observations that I wanted to share with you as we head into 2025. Remember to start making plans for FDIC. I'd love to see you there, April 7th to the 12th. Head on over to FDIC.com for all the information you need. I'm going to be there the whole week. I'm doing my 4-hour pre-conference workshop, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to meet you. If you can't make it to my class, I know there's so many others to choose from. Shoot me a text, email, whatever. We can meet up. We can have a coffee, a beer, a pop, whatever. We call it pop in the Buffalo area. But I'd love to come talk to you. And I'd love for you to stop in, know if you could make it to my class, where we'll talk about things we can do personally and organizationally to be just a little bit more professional in everything that we do. If you want to reach out to me, my email is tamerrill63@aol.com. I'm on all the social media sites. I have a Professional Volunteer Fire Department Facebook page. I gave you my website, the professionalvolunteerfiredepartment.com or the pvfd.com. I have links to all the articles, my podcasts, my presentations. And speaking of reading, if you'd like to get a copy of the book, The Professional Volunteer Fire Department, reach out to me. I'd send you a signed copy of it. But thanks again. It means a lot to me that you choose to listen in. I hope you didn't mind my little bit of rambling here tonight of covering what we talked about over the last year. It's been a tiring month. I'm tired. I'm ready to get into the holidays. I love my family. My daughter's flying in this weekend from San Diego to spend a few weeks with us. My other 3 daughters live locally with my wife and I in the area. I got a big family, and I'm looking forward to spending time with my family, both personal family and firehouse family, as we enter the holiday seasons. I wish you and your family all the best as we round out 2024. Thank you again for listening. I look forward to a great 2025. Please reach out to me if you need anything at all. If you have ideas for the show, if you want to be on the show, just take care. Enjoy the holidays, folks. And remember that true professionalism is never defined by a paycheck. And as we enter 2025, remember your residents are owed professional service delivered by professional firefighters representing a professional organization. Take care, folks.
In firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. For over 20 years, TheFireStore has equipped first responders with trusted gear featuring brands like MSA Carnes for helmets and Seek for thermal imaging cameras. Stay prepared. Visit TheFireStore.com today. The FireStore, your trusted safety partner.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with Magnegrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit Magnegrip.com